Welcome to the Sabbath Cafe podcast. This is episode 123. Small steps lead to big changes. When I was younger, I used to want to do big and great things that can influence a lot of people. But as I get older, I'm learning that in order to do the big things, I need to start taking small steps. Because it's these small steps that will help build up the skills and experiences that I need to eventually tackle something bigger and more significant. I lived next to a piano teacher when I grew up. Every day I listened to the beautiful piano music that flowed out of her house. And after a lot of begging, my mom finally agreed to let me take lessons. However, when I first started taking those lessons, it was nothing like the beautiful music I've heard her play. Instead, I was only doing beginner exercises that sounded a lot like chopsticks, and I felt like I was fighting with my small and stiff fingers all the time. Like everyone who's ever learned an instrument can tell you, these early lessons are repetitive and very easy. But even though these basic exercises feel simple and maybe even a bit boring, it's actually very important to practice them every day and to do them correctly, because they build muscle memory and muscle strength that your fingers need to play the piano well. And eventually, one small exercise after another, I could finally play those beautiful and sophisticated piano pieces like my piano teacher. Nowadays, we're so used to seeing a project completed in the 15-second videos, and that we tend to forget real learning takes time, and real change takes time too. And the process of learning and doing the work often don't come with the instant gratifications that we get from just simply scrolling on our phones. But when we are persistent and we continue to take these small steps in the right direction, and that we take the time to do the work of learning and growing, we get the ultimate satisfaction of finally having real and meaningful growth and actually make changes that would last. I recently found my old sketchbook. To be honest, the pictures look like kindergarten art projects. Back then, I was simply curious about drawing and sketching, and I made all kinds of mistakes. But when I looked through the pages, it was amazing to see how far I've come and how much I've grown in the last 10 years. When I first started, I had never imagined that my skills can grow to where they're at today. And all I did was simply to keep drawing, keep sketching, and keep creating. Some of my sketches went straight into the wastebasket, but a few eventually did make it into art shows. And now looking back, I can see that I learned something from every project. Whether they look good or not, every project taught me something, and they all helped get me to where I'm at today. And I seem to follow the same learning process in other areas of my life too. When I was working through my anxiety issues, I also started with just a few simple daily habits, and these habits eventually helped me manage my anxiety much better. And through these things, I learned the value of making small changes and the value of doing the little things consistently. These little steps is what it will take for me to accomplish the final goal. I've learned not to despise my small beginnings and to be patient with the process even when I don't see results yet. Maybe you also feel discouraged about some of your projects, but don't give up. Be persistent and just do the next thing. Our journeys are all different. Take your next step and do it well. Before you know it, you too will reach your destination. Real learning and real change takes time. Don't despise these small beginnings, because small beginnings can and will lead to big changes. And that's it for this episode. Did anything specific come to mind as you were listening to today's podcast? What are some small steps you can maybe take in those areas? I hope you will take a few minutes and just write them down. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope today's podcast has encouraged you. Have a wonderful week, and we'll see you next time.
You have been listening to Sabbath Cafe Podcast. If you enjoyed this, please visit sabbathcafeblog.com for more information. Thank you.